We are then introduced to a world outside of the brothel, the food and whatnot. The food of the world, the oha or manga meat or peat, were salty and oily, food that guys like to eat. It is also here that we see how the males treat the females. All the customers of the restaurants were males, and there were no groups of girls chatting. People in this world use women like tools, as it is a matter of course, and there are piles of things you have to endure here just for being a girl. In this other world, a woman eating out alone was considered improper and shameful. Even if a woman was an adventurer, she would not be allowed to register in any guild. Such was the situation of Kyori, the young priestess who crossed on Chiba. The sex workers even had a date system, wherein customers can hang out with a girl outside for a fixed price. Taking home a girl was prohibited, but this rule was rarely followed. Basically, as long as the girl was with a man, they can go out for tea and it would not be considered shameful. Also, sex workers, like the real world, had low status. The difference is that the males in this world loved rape. If the workers was assaulted on the street, no one, not even the soldiers, would bother to rescue her. Haru would keep reminding herself that this world was not meant for her, or for any women. It's here that we hear another foreshadow from Lupe, her co-worker. But I like that about you, Haru. You seem like you might start something cool. During the third chapter, we see Haru trying to change that misogynistic view little by little, with something simple as putting a bench outside the shop and having a girl time. And it was girl talk that gave her essential nutrients. We are then introduced to Shikarazo, one of the top workers. Haru sees her as a beautiful woman, inside and out. It was Haru's goal to be like her someday. Well, one of her goals. There were also other things that Haru wanted to do, like have picnics or learn to cook. But perhaps her most ambitious goal was to change the perspective of women in the world, which she would later reveal after meeting multiple characters. And it was with Shikarazu's passing that Haru awakened to her real self. But even after her death, the male-dominated society claimed that her death was caused by an illness. Lupe, Haru's co-worker, is perhaps the closest friend Haru has. She had more experience in the industry, more than 3 years. And through troubled times, it was Lupe who stood out for Haru. Her experience was evident when the brutal soldiers took her into their table and sexually abused her after she spilled the drinks for the commander. She was a strong woman, trying her best to keep her pain inside. She served as the perfect confidant for Haru, as she is always right by her side when anything goes wrong. And it was also her who really saw Chiba's flaws. And at the end of the story, she tries to help Chiba out as much as possible. She's perhaps the antithesis to Kyori, in a way. Kyori is seen as this beautiful young lady with fair skin, wearing a white dress. Her past was something you would see in a medieval fairy tale. She was attacked by monsters, but an adventurer saved her. But unlike a damsel in distress who clung on to the adventurer, she pursued to save as many people as she could. She studied hard and got her license. And that's when she met Chiba and felt feelings for him. But it wasn't long until she fell out of love. Her personality, she was very pure at the beginning, not knowing anything about the outside world or how relationships work. But after learning how difficult it was to build rapport with Chiba, she begins doubting her feelings. It was while Haru discussed the current relationship of Chiba and Kyori that she realized the difference between relationships in this world and the previous one. We have to look at a person's face. Ask right away if you don't understand something. Make your opinion heard, correct yourself, or change the direction of the conversation if you're wrong. I can end this discussion right here with this statement, for it already carries the theme of the entire story. However, there is more that I would like to share regarding Kyori. After learning that Chiba prefers to go solo, without the need for a priestess, Kyori thinks that perhaps he had no place for her, and Haru then explains why. She ends her advice by saying, "You need to speak up more when you're talking about your feelings too. Boys in general have trouble hearing. And don't lose to misogynists. It's men and women that make the world go round." At the end of the story, we see her broken up with Chiba, realizing that looks and personality matter more than just strength. Other than the female characters, we also have the customers, those who would sleep with Haru, and she in turn gained a trait much more powerful than anything Chiba has ever learned. One of these characters was James' tall brother, or as Haru calls him, Sumo. Unlike most of the men Haru met, Sumo wore nice clothes and a little too timid for his size. This changed Haru's opinion that not all men were ruthless and savage. In fact, Haru even wanted to motivate Sumo to go and follow his heart. It took some time before he actually stood his ground and rescued Haru from a bunch of delinquents. But the very act of saving her was enough to know that Sumo was a gentleman. And so he was, even when they did it. Now, the first actual customer we were introduced to is the grimy face man. This man loved to choke his partners, and it was not rare in the world for men to choke sex workers, or just normal women. This character symbolized just how dangerous Haru's job was. Her second customer was a bard with a weird fetish for music. Instead of getting attracted by Haru's body, he was attracted by her poses. And the bard got off even more when Haru played a simple chord from Toritetsu, a Japanese rock song which she learned from her boyfriend. He even goes to comment that her playing was like a round-trip slap from a goddess. However, despite her playing, the bard didn't want her to sing because of how bad her voice was. What's funny is that they finished the same time as the song. Even in a different world, they're still perverts. At the end of the chapter, we see him playing a bad version of Toritetsu and the crowd's loving it. For Haru though, it was simply normal strumming. Her next customer was the opponent that Chiba beat up during their fight in the Colosseum. He was the first one who threatened Haru's life outside the establishment by saying that he and his lackeys could rape her anytime if she left. He was driven by jealousy, and it is here that we, again, get a glimpse of Haru's view on men. Sometimes I really think men are dumb, and they are definitely at their dumbest when they're having sex. This, again, is a foreshadow to a customer that took me by surprise later on in the story. Following him was a blacksmith who did it with Haru during the maid cafe event simply because she reminded him of his cat. Here we see how Haru gets familiar with her customers. She learns their preferences, their styles, their kinks. But after him, a group of thugs sexually harassed her and gave them service, while everyone watched. Haru couldn't do anything, nor could Lupe or their madame. They had already paid for her, so they did whatever they wanted. They even treated her violently as she did her best to give them service, as she dressed and acted like a dog. If not for Sumo coming to buy her away from them, who knows what might have happened to her. It's later on in the story that we are introduced to the silver-haired man. He did not leave much of an expression on the other characters, but Haru became attracted to him because he was cool. Unlike most men in the world, this man did not come to the brothel to crave his sexual desires. He goes there just to get a drink, and he only appears whenever it was raining. He found the idea of idiotic men losing themselves to the charm of women boring. He was the only male character that Haru did not find gross. To quote, "In this shop full of grimy, barbaric dudes, he was the only one who cleaned." At first, the man did not accept Haru's advances, but after telling him her story of playing kicking the can, he became a little interested, saying that children's games teach how to fight a war. But much to Haru's dismay, the man already had a wife and children. Still, Haru pursued him, and after a while, she found out that he knew about the real world. He knew that there were people who were transported in this world, but all of them died. After learning from each other, Haru finally had the courage to invite him to her room and gave him service and then some. And unlike her other customers, he was the one who never taught her any skill. And finally, there's a soldier, Mr. Bisky, Shikwazu's boyfriend. He's seen as this handsome young man who looked like he loved Shikwazu very much that he would stay loyal to her no matter what. And this was a time when the soldiers protecting the town took a break at the brothel. Haru slept with one of the soldiers and found them gentle in bed, but when a certain change happened, he and his squad were no longer gentle. Despite being Shikwazu's boyfriend, he sexually abused Lupe and made her do disgusting things to them. If not for the silver-haired man coming to the rescue, things could have been taken turn for the roast. After a while, things changed. The whole squadron changed, from the lovable and gentle soldiers to the brutal, cruel savages. And from here, we just how much I was struggling, but stayed strong. But I still smiled. I'm a pro, so I smiled. Later on, we found out that Shikwazu never came back after promising to boost the morale of the soldiers in their bases. Haru went to check her condition and saw just how horrible they were treating her. All of the soldiers were ganging up on her, and she was struggling. But her, and to all of the soldiers, it was her job. Afraid but determined, Haru decided to switch places with Shikwazu to at last stop her suffering. And what happened next were inhumane and disgusting scenes that were very disturbing to read. So gross that if I were to describe it, you would not be able to stomach it. And what more for Haru and Shikwazu? It's only scary because you think it's scary. It's only rough because you think it's rough. It's only gross because you think it's gross. Shut down your emotions one by one. Doing that will make your body feel just like a tool. Mr. Biscuit told me that.